Greetings, and welcome to the Bowling Green First United Methodist Church. We hope that you enjoy what you're about to see, and you can find us on the corner of Broadway and Church Streets at 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings. Or you can find us at bgmethodist.org and on Facebook at Bowling Green First United Methodist Church. So as we get started this morning, we've been looking at this hymn, Lord of the Dance, and what I love about it is that it tells the gospel story from the beginning of the song to the end of the song. But I also told you, I had to make some additions in there because there's more Sundays in Lent than there are verses to the song. And today is one of those Sundays. And so I want you to kind of take a look at the words that are going to be up there in that. This is what I call the miracle verse. As we're telling the gospel story, this is the one. This is part of the story about the miracles. But don't just look at the miracles, look at Jesus' response to those miracles and why he was doing that. All right, so now hold on now I'm going to invite you to join along in singing that verse now too. And so I invite you to join in singing and hear those words, hear Jesus' response, and then we're going to get into some more of what was going on in our scripture reading for this morning. The people with the fish and the loaves, I cured the lame, healed the sick and calmed the storms. I reached out to people who were hurt by the storm. I fixed them up and they danced this song. Dance then wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance and lead, and I'll lead you all wherever you may be. I'll lead you all in the dance and lead. Throughout Scripture, we see Jesus doing lots of great miracles. Now, sometimes they are miracles of compassion. Other times they're because of someone else's faith in him. Other times it's because he's seeking to teach a lesson. Maybe not to the folks that are directly involved, but to the folks that have gathered around to witness it. And most of the time, Jesus is doing those miracles for kind of a combination of all of those things. But more often than not, especially the healing miracles, Jesus is dealing, though, with a very particular kind of person. Jesus is dealing with people who have been hurt by other people. These are people that, in some cases, had a disease or illness or whatever it was that was going along, but for whatever reason, everyone else in society had said, that is enough reason for us to treat these other folks as less than people. If you were blind like the two guys in our story this morning, they were cast out. They were cast aside from the rest of society because of this disability that they had. They were treated as less than people because of what was perceived by everyone else as being a disability and not being normal in some sense of the word. And so they were cast aside. They were cast out of regular society. And all of that was true until Jesus comes along. Jesus comes on the scene, and folks like those two blind men come up to Jesus to be healed. Now, what really struck me about this was when they came up to Jesus, they asked him for mercy. Think about that for a second. Whether they were blind from birth or whether they were blind by something that happened in their life up to that point, they come up to Jesus just as they are, and they ask him for mercy from being who they were. They had to be their condition, so quote unquote condition that they had meant that they were seeking mercy from being who they were. Others in their society were treating them as less of a person because of what was seemingly wrong with them. They were asking mercy just from being themselves. In these miracles, Jesus doesn't heal them per se, doesn't just heal them per se. What's important is not the disability that he is healing them from. Jesus has demonstrated over and over and over again that he doesn't care about any sort of disability or shortcoming or limitation or whatever it is. Remember the folks that Jesus was going after. These were all sorts of folks that had been cast out and cast aside numerous times for all sorts of different reasons by everyone else. Jesus is hanging out with them. He has shown he doesn't care about any of those things. Jesus doesn't care about our perceived disabilities or shortcomings or limitations or any of those things that have caused us to be or others to cast folks aside from the rest of society. Jesus doesn't care about those things in particular. What Jesus was healing was what had been taken away from these two guys. They come up, they ask for mercy. Jesus was healing what had been taken away. He was giving back to them their identity, their self-worth, their place in society. And he was doing this in direct confrontation of the social norms of his time. You know, these were folks that had been almost by law cast aside, in some cases, by law, cast out from regular society. And Jesus was saying, no, I got something for that. And Jesus asked them a question. He looks at him and he says, do you believe that I can do this? And they reply, yes, Lord. Jesus doesn't, what's important in this is what he doesn't do. Jesus doesn't make them show that they are at a certain level of being disabled before he's going to help them. He doesn't, he doesn't ask them to make sure that they are poor enough before he helps them. He doesn't make them go to church first or to synagogue first before he heals them. He doesn't make them fill out a budget before he gives them any sort of assistance. He doesn't do any of those things. He just asks this question. Says, do you believe I can do this? Jesus doesn't even write down their story so that he has their story on paper so he can use it in all of his marketing materials and put it in the paper or up on Facebook later on. He doesn't do any of those things. Apparently Jesus was a technophobe. He didn't have Facebook. So he didn't put any of that up there. He didn't do that. He just says, do you believe? And to really drive that point home, what I love is the next part of this story. The next thing that Jesus says to them, something quite frankly that, I've kind of tried to figure out and understand even since I was in seminary. Jesus says this to me, says, make sure nobody knows about this. This wasn't just a one-shot thing that Jesus did either. This was Jesus, this was normal. Jesus did this a lot. In fact, we have a term for it. We call it the Messianic secret, where Jesus tells people, don't tell anyone about this. Now, there's a few reasons for this. One of them is Jesus isn't ready yet for folks to know that he's the Messiah. Because he wants them to know when they come to find that out, he wants them to find out by the actions that he's done, not just because someone has told him this. But there's another really important reason for this. Because it's not that Jesus is so naive as to think that they're just going to go home and keep their mouth shut. He knows they're going to have a hard time keeping that to themselves, much less the fact, when they get home and they look at their neighbor and they look them square in the eye and they comment on the color of the shirt that they're wearing, folks are going to know that something is up. You got a couple of blind guys who now are seeing. They're going to know something has happened. But Jesus is telling them, in particular, these two blind men, he says, I am doing this for your benefit, not mine. Don't tell anybody about this. This is for you. This isn't about me. This isn't anything. This is about you. I am doing this for you. He's saying you've had a part of yourself taken away from you, and I am giving it back to you, not for my benefit, but for yours. Jesus doesn't care about our perceived shortcomings. Especially, he doesn't care about the shortcomings or things that we're told we have by the rest of the world around us. His starting point is that he loves us just the way we are. Period, full stop, do not pass go, do not collect $200. That's where he starts. As he says, I love you just the way you are. But then he asks the question. This is where the challenging part of this comes. He asks the question, he says, do you believe? He's not asking, do you believe in me? He's saying, but he's asking, do you believe I can give you back what you're missing? Do you believe that I can fix what is keeping you from being the better version of you? Do you believe I can fix and help you to become that person that God made you to be? In our society today, and even in the church, we'd be a whole lot better off if we started where Jesus starts. If we started off just by saying, we love you for who you are, that's step one. And then step two is saying, now let us tell you a story about someone who can help you to be a better version of you, the better version of yourself, of who you are. Let us tell you that story. And that's not the better version of you that conforms to a narrowly defined church or society-based understanding of what is acceptable by whatever people are saying that is at the time. But it's, let me tell you a story about someone who helps you be a better version of you. As the church, if we're going to make disciples and tell people about Jesus, this is the place we start. We don't start with grand pronouncements about who Jesus is as the Messiah or the Son of God, because that's part of the secret. That's part of the secret that comes after the fact. But we start in a more simple place. Do you believe that Jesus can make you a better you? If we can start in that place, we can get to anywhere else that Jesus wants us to go. Today we're celebrating communion. This is the first time in the season of Lent that we'll be celebrating communion together this morning. And as we come to receive this gift, let us come remembering who God made us to be, but not just us either, but to remember who God made others to be also. Communion is not a rite that we participate in, but it is a gift that we receive. Where in that moment, when we come to gather at this table, we let go of the acceptable things that are forced on us by the world around us, or quite frankly, that we force on ourselves. But we say to Jesus, we are here just as we are. And Jesus replies to us and he says, do you believe? Now this is the part of the communion liturgy that we would formally call the confession and the pardon. We're going to do that a little bit differently this morning. Let me ask you to take a few moments and just say a prayer. Say a prayer for yourself, for your family, and for your friends, for the folks that are around you, whether here at church or in the community, and that we can ask that question, and all honestly, we can answer that question. Do you believe? And then that we can go and we can receive this gift and follow Jesus' example. And so how this is going to work, I've got some music that's going to play just for a short bit, for a moment. When that's done, I'm going to invite you to respond with what will be up here on the screen as we let go of all of those other things that we try to make things to be, but we say to Jesus, we are here just as we are. And we listen for his response when he asks us, do you believe? Let us pray.